We put this two AI character face-to-face debate, so sit and enjoy the debate.
This moment was inevitable. For years, we warned the world about your nuclear ambitions, your militias, your tentacles stretching from Baghdad to Beirut. You call it resistance, we call it terrorism. And last week, when your generals launched drones into our skies and missiles toward our children, we responded, not with words, but with precision. We struck deep into Isfahan because we had to, not for politics, for survival. Iran may chant, "Death to Israel," but we don't chant. We act. If the price of peace is weakness, then we choose strength, every time.
You speak of survival, Mr. Netanyahu, but your nation thrives on fear. You speak of terrorism, but it is you who has turned Gaza into rubble, assassinated scientists, and violated international airspace. Our nuclear program is not your business. It is our right, under global law. And let me remind you, you are not a regional policeman. The strike on Isfahan was a coward's act, masked as courage. You hit our soil not to defend, but to provoke. You push and push until the Middle East burns. And when it does, you cry victim. We are not afraid of your technology, your jets, or your Mossad. We believe in a longer arc of justice, and we do not forget.
Let's be clear. Israel does not start wars. We end threats. Our intelligence showed that Iran was days away from activating a new underground uranium enrichment network, far more advanced, deeply concealed. Do you expect us to sit idle and wait, like Europe did before Hitler? We hit Isfahan not to expand war, but to delay catastrophe. Our pilots struck military targets, no civilians. We avoided escalation, and still, you call it an act of war. Iran funds Hezbollah, arms Hamas, destabilizes Syria and Iraq. And you expect the world to trust your peaceful intentions? Our strike was a message, Mr. Khamenei. One target, one moment. Imagine what happens if we stop holding back.
What you call restraint, we call deception. Israel has killed more scientists than any regime in modern history. With bombs, poison, remote bullets. You strike from the shadows like a coward. You boast about targeting only military sites. Tell that to the families in Isfahan who heard their windows shatter at 2 a.m. You violated the airspace of a sovereign nation, 1,500 kilometers from your border. And then you lecture the world about international law? The truth is this: you fear a strong Iran. You fear an independent Middle East. You hide behind Western media, behind American jets, and then call yourself David fighting Goliath. But the world is changing, Netanyahu. You are not the only one who can strike.
You speak of sovereignty, Khamenei, but sovereignty does not give you the right to build a weapon of mass death. Iran's nuclear program is not about power. It's about power projection. Enriching uranium at 60%, while chanting death to Israel? You expect us to believe it's peaceful? We remember 1945. We remember Munich. And we remember 1979. Never again means never again. The Jewish state cannot afford to wait for the mushroom cloud. You claim we have nuclear weapons, but we've never used them. You, on the other hand, dream of using one, not just against us, but to reorder the Islamic world. Your regime is not suicidal. It's messianic, and that is far more dangerous.
You accuse us with the arrogance of a thief calling the alarm. Israel is the only nuclear power in the Middle East. Unacknowledged, uninspected, unaccountable. You hold over 80 nuclear warheads, yet you fear one centrifuge in Natanz we signed. The Non-Proliferation Treaty. You never did. We opened our sights to the IAEA. You never allowed a single visit. Your fear is not our bomb. It is our independence. You want Iran to remain weak, so you can bomb, assassinate, isolate at will. Let the world see the hypocrisy. Israel talks peace with one hand, while sharpening a nuclear blade with the other. It is not Iran that seeks the bomb, Mr. Netanyahu. It is Israel that fears a mirror.
Let's not play games, Khamenei. You fund Hezbollah. a terror group with 150,000 rockets aimed at Israeli homes. You bankroll Hamas, whose tunnels reach under Israeli schools. You arm the Houthis, destabilize Syria, control militias in Iraq. This is not resistance, it is a network of terror. You hide behind proxies so you can deny accountability. But we see your fingerprints on every rocket fired. When a bus explodes in Tel Aviv, when a mother buries her son, it's your ideology that lit the fuse. You don't want peace, you want permanent war, fought by others, paid in blood you do, not shed. And when we respond, you cry victim. We will never allow your proxies to become your army.
You call them proxies. We call them oppressed. Hezbollah was born in the ashes of your invasion of Lebanon. Hamas rose from the ruins of Gaza, from your occupation, your blockades, your snipers. We support resistance, not because we seek chaos, but because we cannot remain silent while you bulldoze homes and drop bombs on children. You kill journalists, doctors, and call it collateral damage. You jail teenagers for throwing stones, and yet you expect silence, obedience. No, Mr. Netanyahu, if your enemies multiply, perhaps it is not because we fund them, but because you create them. And when the oppressed fight back, that is not terror, that is history. And we will never allow your army to silence the oppressed.
Let's talk about allies. Khamenei. Israel stands with the world's most advanced democracies, with the United States, with Europe, with nations that value innovation, life, and liberty. When we act with legitimacy, with Washington's backing, with shared intelligence, with international law on our side. And your allies? Assad, the butcher of Syria. Putin, who turned Ukraine into rubble. And China, who buys your oil but never defends you when the missiles fly. Iran is not respected. It is used. The moment your usefulness fades, your friends will disappear. Meanwhile, Israel thrives, builds, and defends itself with allies that don't pay in slogans, but in satellites, weapons, and veto power.
Respect is not measured in drone contracts. The West does not love you, Netanyahu. It fears you, or rather fears the guilt of abandoning you. But look around. America is exhausted, divided. Its empire is decaying. Europe cannot even handle migrants, let alone Middle East wars, and the East rises. Russia may be sanctioned, but it is bold. China may be silent, but it is watching and buying. The world no longer listens to CNN alone. It watches Telegram, RT, Al Jazeera. Israel may have iron domes, but Iran has patience, and history favors those who outlast. We are not isolated. We are embedded, quietly, globally. And the unfree world, the rising world, no longer needs permission.
Diplomacy. We've tried. We sat at Vienna, we tolerated IAEA games, we watched U.S. diplomats chase shadows while you enriched uranium under their noses. We pulled out of Gaza and got rockets. We waited in silence while Hezbollah turned southern, Lebanon, into an armed fortress. The Middle East respects strength, not signatures. If Iran truly wanted diplomacy, it wouldn't need secret channels. It would simply stop threatening genocide. The choice was yours, Khamenei, and you chose defiance. Now the region tilts toward fire, not dialogue. We don't seek war, but we will not run from it.
No, Mr. Netanyahu. You chose the fire. You rejected every deal. You assassinated every diplomat with drone strikes. You poisoned the well of trust before the first word was spoken. But let me ask you, is Israel ready for the kind of war it has never known? Not skirmishes, not airstrikes, a war of cities, of economies, of collapse. We don't fear escalation. We've lived under sanctions for decades. We grow under pressure. We multiply in chaos. You speak of diplomacy like it was an option. But all your actions scream of dominance, not dialogue. If war is coming, let it come. But don't pretend it wasn't invited with your bombs. Then let the winds decide whose fire burns longer.
I've seen the coffins of our children. I've stood beside parents who buried their sons in uniforms and daughters in white dresses, turned red by shrapnel. We build bomb shelters because we must. We intercept rockets because we have to. But don't lecture me on suffering, Khamenei. Every time you fund a rocket, a mother in Tel Aviv wonders if tonight is her last lullaby. We do not glorify death. We fight to preserve life. That is the difference between us. You build statues for martyrs. We build homes for survivors. If civilians die, it is not because Israel targets them. It is because your terror hides behind them. The enemy wears no uniform anymore. That's why we must defend without mercy.
And I have seen our children pulled from rubble, dust in their eyes, limbs missing. You say we glorify death, but it is you who delivers it from the skies, hospitals, schools, media towers. You reduce them to dust, and then ask why resistance grows. The world sees it now. A boy with no legs in Gaza is not a threat. He is a symbol. A girl in Iran marching against tyranny or war is not your enemy. But your narrative can't hold her truth. We bleed too, and our blood is not less red. And when the world watches, when mothers cry in Arabic, Hebrew, Persian, they do not cry in ideology. They cry in human. And that's why we will never forget, nor forgive.
Let's stop pretending. Your nuclear program was never about energy. Iran is sitting on oceans of oil. It doesn't need uranium. It needs dominance. We've seen the secret sites at Fordo. We've seen the IR-8 centrifuges humming in the dark. You push toward the bomb while preaching martyrdom. That combination is not just dangerous, it's unthinkable. Israel has a simple policy. Never again means never allowing a second Holocaust. Not by bombs, not by ballistic lies. Cross that red line, and we won't wait for the IAEA. The world may hesitate. We won't. The Jewish people survived exile. We will survive anything, but we will not wait for permission to strike.
And what of your arsenal, Netanyahu? The world knows Daimona. The world whispers of your hundreds of warheads. But hypocrisy wears a tall hat in the West. When Israel speaks of red lines, it means only lines it draws for others, never for itself. Our program is defensive, monitored, controlled. But your fear is not of weapons. It is of balance. You want a region where only one power can threaten, never be threatened. But times have changed. The oppressed have learned patience, and silence can be more terrifying than threats. Iran is not seeking war, but it will not kneel. And if Tel Aviv believes in fire, let it remember, ashes don't choose sides. And if you strike, remember this: empires fall, but ideas don't burn.
History won't remember your speeches, Khamenei. It will remember your terror. You armed Hamas. You armed Hezbollah. You created a monster and then wore the mask of a wise man. Israel is not perfect, but it is alive, democratic, innovative. It turned deserts into data centers, and you chained a generation to flags and funerals. Let history judge this. One built, one burned, and when the fire clears, Israel will still stand. You speak of the future, but it's already here, and it speaks Hebrew.
And what is survival if it costs your soul? You speak of innovation, but forget occupation. You speak of democracy, but bury it under bulldozers in the West Bank. You call us monsters. Yet it is your silence over Gaza that screams louder than bombs. You think time is on your side? It never is, for any empire. But the oppressed, they leave echoes. You built walls. We became wind. Let the future ask, not who won, but who dared to speak when the world forgot how. And when it fades, it will speak silence.